I have lots of people who share my passion, share the same kind of work. They get excited looking at a small map on the card, and also a map which does not work good on an app. So we all share that same passion. So let's go ahead. I think I've given my title to the talk as When Billions Move. And I don't know how many of you have been to India. How many of you have been to India? Yeah, lots of them. So you've tasted how the country is and how busy we are and how populated we are. And and you must have also noticed that maybe the projects don't happen in the same way that they happen in the Western country, right? It's a little different way in which we work. So if we are saying that we want to move ahead in India, it doesn't work like we just move ahead. Right? You join me and then let's move ahead. It doesn't happen like that. It actually happens that we have to move ahead together. Because we are such a diverse country, there is on one side you have metropolises like Mumbai, Delhi, which are like extremely modern. You get the latest infrastructure and everything. At the same time, you have villages which actually need the transport. You need facilities over there. So that's why then if you have to take so many people along, the pace at which you move is a little less. So what I'll show you, my talk will have first few slides about giving you a glimpse of what's happening in India, particularly in transport and mobility, which is not only limited to probably mapping or urban transport. And then I'll talk a few things about the works that I have done and a little bit of thought-provoking stance as designers that we need to take when we have to talk to the transport authorities. This is a regular station, a railway station, somewhere in Rajasthan, and people are standing on the station. You don't see a roof. There are a few signs there. There's a water fountain. This is a normal railway station. Railway stations are also changing in India now. But the train behind it is actually a train which is Palace on Wheels. So none of the people who are actually on the train station right now probably will even ever enter into the train. It's a 5 to 6 star luxury tourist train which runs in the state. So that's the kind of diversity that we are talking about, and we have to ensure that when you design for a public transport in a city, everybody has to be included and it has to be inclusive. There is a lot of symbolism, there is a lot of deep philosophy that we work with. We do a lot of rituals, there are a lot of mailings, and you have seen that a lot of work that we have done over ages, the scriptures that we have, we never documented them. They were all passed by word of mouth. So we believe in word of mouth more. If I talk to you and I give you my word, then yes, it's considered, yes, he will do something about that. And that makes a lot of difference, particularly for information design, because it doesn't get documented anywhere, so you don't find maps in India. Very rarely you'll find maps in public places. Yeah? Same way, we worship a lot of systems that we put together. When you buy a vehicle, you will worship it. Every year we worship our vehicles, we worship our machineries, we worship our tools, because they are actually bringing value to what you're doing. Mumbai, everybody knows, it's an impossible system if I explain that 14 to 16 people travel in a square meter in the rush hour, which is at least 4 hours every day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. If you want to have an experience of how a compactor works, you should travel in this train, right? This is one of the pictures that I took when I was on a rail trip. I do backpack rail trips in India. So it's a regular station, a regular concourse. This concourse is in Ahmedabad. Everything happens here. You buy tickets, you wait, you eat. You are probably trying to look for the next travel. And then suddenly 10 years back, we built a huge airport in Mumbai. And that changed the aspirations of people. That transport infrastructure can be different. And we have that ability to make an impact. So I'll keep giving you these diverse images. And on the other end, somewhere in Rajasthan, people are saying we don't get buses. We don't have modes of transport. Let's build it ourselves. And these are still built. Now they've got electric, but they still built it themselves, right? So it's a design instinct that people will have to solve their problems. Delhi Metro, which was probably the first project which started organized urban transit system in India. I had a fortunate chance of working on it, And you can imagine 46 million people living in the area where this Delhi Metro operates, right? And once you do the sign, sometimes I always wonder, this sign was on my drawing sometime nicely, page, nice elevation, we worried a lot about the fonts and stuff like that. The signs are like this now, they're a part of the environment, right? This is the very busy market in the north part of Delhi, and the station is underground, it's under the tubes, right? About 20 years back, Indian Railways decided to start ticket vending machines. And ticket vending machines were introduced because they had a lot of challenges because the ticket queues were growing in front of the counters. So they introduced vending machines, but they suddenly noticed that those vending machines also had long queues. So there was a huge problem in people accessing the information, there were user interface issues, and the ticket vending machines had longer queues. So it was difficult for them to even manage that. So finally, they brought out that guy who was sitting behind the window, outside the window. So you can see a guy sitting there, he actually does the work for you. So it's not a vending machine, self-operated vending machine, he does it for you. Huge challenges in terms of because everybody uses the system, and you cannot expect everybody to have the similar kind of a learning curve to use an interface, yeah? And now, India has just leapfrogged. Now I have started this statement that we have now today believe more in code than God, right? So you must have heard about this unified payment interface that India has started. I have a studio which has about 7-8 people. We are growing slowly. All are young. They don't carry any currency in their wallet. They just have to scan a QR code, pay for buying a banana, to pay for buying a ticket, to pay for buying a movie. No more cash. And even this person who is a sadhu, probably in a temple, priest, he is also buying some scriptures using that code. So it's gone to that level, and even tickets on trains are purchased like that. I'm passionate about trains, so I do a lot of work in that. So there is a lot of work happening in railways. New trains are being built. We are becoming self-reliant. We are now catching up in terms of building our own railways. This is the train which was launched about 3 years ago. And they are now rolling out more stuff like that, and we will be soon having a high speed. So probably 7, 8, or 10 years down the line, you will have high speed connectivities across major metropolitan cities in India. Currently, it is happening on the west coast, west side, which is from Mumbai to Ahmedabad, if you're aware of the geography. Yeah, we are partly involved in this project for wayfinding works right now. Again, a contrast. There are still ports which are building ships, wooden ships. And they take about 12-14 months to build. They still use the age-old ancient methodologies of tying the wood and put them together. And I had a fortunate time to visit one of them. And they still do transport trade between India and Middle East. Ships still operate, right? BRT has been popular. BRT is slowly growing. It has hiccups because a lot of push from the government is on the metros because they are seen as drivers for economy. They're seen as we are building good infrastructure, bringing more, I would say, jobs to cities. Buses are slightly not a favorite. So we are a part of a small group of people who are doing a little bit activism to say, improve the buses. Yeah, it's high time you need to improve the buses. A lot of work is happening on urban scale where, our cities are not like Abu Dhabi, where you actually had a clean canvas, right? We started working with cities which are 300, 400 year olds, at times 1,000-year-olds. And how do you work on the city center and make them accessible, right? So plazas are being carved out. And then there are last mile connectivity solutions that are being built, which are electric two-wheelers. This is a friend of mine who started this startup, which is in Bangalore. So there you can put a coin or hire this and go for the last mile connectivity. So there's a lot of things happening in India. So we are expanding airports. So this is just a kind of an oversight of what's happening in India in mobility. We are building airports, we are connecting regions. We talked about that NCRTC. It's a first pilot. Probably that pilot is going to expand across all the metropolises in India. We are reclaiming streets for pedestrian. It's a mass movement. Each and every city is doing initiatives under the Smart Cities mission. We are promoting cycling and non-motorized transport. And yes, we are going electric. And it's been very hardly driven from top down, that we have to meet our global benchmarks of emission and everything. So there is a lot happening. But we should not always, so when in India, it has to be inclusive, it has to be diverse, and you have to embrace that range. This guy was my fellow passenger, sells newspapers on a bus stand. Every day he comes to the bus, he's an handicap, he goes on a small caddy. And the bus driver knows that this guy comes at a stand, he waits for him to come, we pick him up, he sits in this place, and he gets down at some larger bus stand where he sells newspapers. Now that's the inclusivity that we are talking about, and it happens across all the cities. So if you work on mobility and transport, you have to embrace this, right? And for information designers, it's like an exciting place, right? So languages, we have some 16 languages which use some 7 or 8 different scripts. I have myself worked in, I think, 7 different scripts which use 10 languages, right? So multilinguality, it's very difficult for of course, a lot of you can only read the English that's below, but the middle one is Hindi, and the upper one is Tamil. If somebody is from Singapore, they could probably recognize the script. Yeah? Beautiful bus stop. This was demolished under a road widening exercise. If I was there, I would have probably picked this and put it into a museum. You know, amount of care that guys must have taken to build this bus stop with this information, bus numbers in concrete and stuff like that, right? Multilinguality to the core. Even the license plate has 2 languages, right? So that's the way you have to work. Simple board. Your train comes on this station, and people use it. So it's like, you'll notice when I go down in my slide, how design should approach into working at this scale. You can't deliver the solution ultimately to that last person that this is ready solution. You might have to create toolkits. You might have to create systems which people use themselves and then create for themselves, because it is very difficult for one company or one person to reach out to all of them. So the approach of design will be very different over here. So, and as somebody said yesterday, a lot of information is given by bus drivers and conductors. I think you were mentioning about that. It's the same at our place, right? I just did a survey in my main city. About 79% people failed. Yeah, I'll just ask the bus driver and the conductor. Now, that's how the systems are. The dependencies on ready-made maps, printed schedules is very less, right? So after that initial work of what has been happening in India, I'll start about introduction of my work. I'm a railways fan, so I just went to Europe once, and then I just took a trip into high speed because I just wanted to go there. And so this was a project that I did of redesigning the coach of the suburban train in Mumbai. That train had not changed for more than 60 years. And it has a huge problem of ingress and egress, and we kind of did the layout again. And the other part of me is today, which is a very happy person, very joyous, and I'm really thanking Yogesh and Richard for this, to give me an opportunity to speak in front of people who have actually been doing the systems from which I have learned. So I got a chance to travel to Shanghai very often, so I went there, understood. I have traveled in Shanghai buses without understanding anything in Chinese, just to understand how the systems work, and it is brilliant, right? Then I've lived in Hong Kong for a good amount of time. I've learned from MTR a lot. I've learned from Paris a lot. So all those people who have actually been behind us are sitting in front, and I'm really happy that I'm really joyous to have this presence in front of me. So in 2001, somebody approached saying, okay, can you do some work for a metro project? It was actually not even a metro project. They said, it's a railway station. Can you do some work? And I was a railway fan. Graduated in 98, 2001, this came on my door. I said, great, I will do it. It's not a design of a train. I said, no problem, I'll do that. And that became the Delhi Metro. And this was the first project where absolutely zero experience of how do you manage a system map, how do you design wayfinding, how do you understand the system, how is it connected, what is the future expansion of system, no idea. We jumped into it. I still remember it was a big bid document. We had to submit that bid document. The day we were reading that entire bid document and making our notes,
was the day when 9/11 happened. I still remember that day very, very clearly. And that was probably, that changed the course of my work, that I started focusing on the transport, on information design, and the entire system design across. So I have done a lot of work in retail and exhibitions for a good amount of time. And that was for Philips. So I was working with Philips Design, their global design team, and I was based in India and did a lot of retail and exhibitions. But one day, one of my friend who was working in Tata Elxsi, there's one person from Tata Elxsi, has he come today? I was super happy when he said, he was telling me, I wanted to meet you because we are doing the work that you have started. So Tata Elxsi never had any work in transport. And I said, no, I want to work in transport mobility. If you give me a chance, we'll build it. So over 11 years, I worked at Elxsi, and I've created a whole domain, which now is, it's a very strongly built ship which is sailing on its own. So I'm really very happy. When he said, we are here to talk about transport and things like that, I remember I used to be the only participant going to my boss saying, I want to attend this conference, I want to go to this lecture, we want to do this projects, and it's come a long way now. So it's almost about 15 years since I started in 2008. We couldn't do retail because I wanted to move away from retail, and here it was. So it's been set as a course now. So why mobility and why in India? This was a very beautiful illustration that we got, which shows the density of population in India, which I think everybody knows. There is no great guesses to understand why this data, right? And a very beautiful illustration. But what actually makes that major impact is this illustration. You can see the density. Our area is smaller than China, and we are more populated than China, right? And we can't take the same paradigms with which Western world has developed. It cannot. We will have to change the way things are working in India here. Imagine all these people who are going to travel. Mobility is the core part of what you do. You can't change that. How do you do this? So I really thank, I have just picked up this visualization from Alistair Ray. You can kind of Google for his data as well. And this is the challenge. It's a very quick challenge that I've put it. What is the challenge that we actually want to solve? Somebody's making a map, somebody's making good architecture in stations, somebody is making sure that there is a design team as a part of the operator, which is ensuring that the whole system is delivering a good experience. What are we trying to solve? Imagine when a person in India wants to travel, he says, I want to go from A to B, he takes out his two-wheeler, he takes out his car, his aspirations to buy a car, change cars, and it will happen. That's what is happening. But this is what we want to actually make it happen more, which is happening in Western countries, but it may not happen the same way in India. So the scenario 2 is extremely challenging. It's already looking complicated in the visual over here, right? So if you want to really make an impact, the scenario 2 has to be addressed, and not just addressed by one thing that I will make a map, or will run a metro, or will run only a train service, or make the bus air conditioned. It actually has to work across the entire system, or else you will get into this, right? A lot of cities are like this now, and this is Delhi, just outskirts of Delhi when you start going towards Gurgaon. I was actually looking at this image and counting buses. I could only locate 7 of them, right? That's probably not the way in which India will move ahead, yeah? And we can't just keep sitting and praying. Yeah, you have to do something. Let's pray something will happen. Nothing is going to happen. So let's do something. So I decided to focus my work as a circ design studio to focus mainly on mobility experience, service design. Our approach is always using service design towards transport. So you should be in a position to look at how a person travels, why he travels, who is traveling, where he starts from, where he ends, what are the various touch points, and then design the whole system around his requirements. And a lot of work, my work is in public interest design, which is for the larger good, and we also do narrative experiences, some other small projects. I'm really indebted to Tony Howard. Andrew knows him. I think some other people might also know him. I call him as my guru. I met him in 2003. And since that time, he is no more. We lost him last year. But he has been the person who guided we shared the same background. He was an industrial designer working in wayfinding. He was working in transport for London. And he is probably inspired me a lot. Yeah. So design that touches millions every day is something that is the core purpose with which we are driven. Wherever you can make a larger impact, we would like to be present in that area. And talking of maps, so all of you would be wondering, when are we talking of maps? So these are various maps that we have been doing. So this was Delhi. When we had done, it was a small network. Actually, I also have the first sketches of this map with me on tracings, which I might probably tomorrow put together in a museum somewhere, which Delhi has curated. So this is Delhi. Very first lines were only the red ones, yellow and the blue that started, which now has gone across. Then this is the next map that I did, which was for Bangalore. So you can see that it used it as a grid. Have you seen Indians drawing a rangoli outside their homes, which is like a pattern which they draw with rice powder? So that was the inspiration to become the main identity of the system. So we used that texture to create a map. Here you can see that there was no metro in the city. So we used the road network as a background and created a map on top of it, so people could have a reference. So most of Indian cities where we have introduced these maps, they always use the existing image, which was based on road. So you had a ring road, you had arterial roads which go from the city center away. So we use that image, and as yesterday somebody said, that we have to concentrate on building that image. And through all these things, we actually build a good image of the city. This was Chennai. Chennai again has an extremely good active MRTS network, which is managed by railways. And this was the first metro which got connected to airport in India. So far, none of the metros were connecting to airports. This was the first one. We did the map over there. Then next one was a small feeder line, which is Mumbai monorail, which again was only a feeder line which connected to the 3 lines. These are the 3 suburban lines of Mumbai, and they connect to them. That's the next map that we did. Further, this was Kochi. Kochi was a very excellent example where we have been able to look at and propose to the client, say, don't think of things in the small parts, like, okay, we'll do architecture, we will do furniture design, we'll do branding separately. Let's look at the whole thing together and tie up everything as a customer experience. Apparently, Kochi probably is I think it's the only city which now has a water metro. They call it a water metro because if you see these lines here, they were proposed at that time. This is a map at least 5 years old. They are going from point to point, and they have seamless interchanges with the metro line and even the buses. So this is the one in Kochi. This is the one in Nagpur, exact center of India. Again, uses the the road map as the base to give you an idea about how the expanse is. I got a chance to design a BRTS map for Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And that was also exciting. Just a simple BRT system which has just a straight line and branches at 2 locations, and it has its own feeder system. So the feeder system is also connected to, we use some local icons, and so some of the icons have been developed. I'm not going to detail into those icons. If anybody has any interest, I'll definitely share that, how it has been done. It's been implemented across the entire Dar es Salaam BRTS system. This is the Mumbai map that is put up at the panel over there. This was recently done, and this will change the face of Mumbai. Basically, because Mumbai always was considered as a linear city, so there was one line which goes on the western side, which is the coast. There was a line which goes from here and enters into the mainland, and all these lines were built during the colonial era by the British, and they were trade routes. They were built to get the entire raw material like cotton and various foodstuff from the mainland towards the port, which was in Mumbai, and from here they used to ship everything to Europe. So those 2-3 lines were used. There is also a line which is harbor line, which just connects the docks. It's very similar to the Docklands DLR in the UK. So those were the 3 lines which took the load, and now these lines will completely change the face of Mumbai. And Mumbai is one city which has the maximum share of urban transport in India, and probably even the world. Together, buses and the trains carry almost close to 68% of trips. So if there are 100 trips happening in Mumbai, 68 to 70 trips happen using urban transport. So it's no guess that if you start a metro, it's going to be full, because people are accustomed, and people walk. In Mumbai, very easily people walk 2 kilometers from the stations. And all these stations, the way when you was mentioning about those suburbs around the Circle Line in Tokyo, all these areas have got developed as markets. And it's a whole different world that has got formed along the entire line. So I have been doing a lot of wayfinding across airports, factories. This is the monorail. We've done hotels, considerable amount of wayfinding work that has been happening. And this again also started because airports wanted to change the whole signage. The airport authority, which is the central government authority, and we helped them to prepare a standardized guideline, which is now published. I was leading this project when it was happening, and it has standardized everything. The project that really changed the way things were working is we approached the head of the metro in Kochi and told them that it's not just about wayfinding, let's do everything. And they said, nobody has done this before. I was connected to a few people from the Dutch railways. I knew RATP has a design team. I knew MTR has a design team. I was connected to some people from Australia who had a design. They had a customer experience department. And that was interesting. So with all those readings, I said, no, let's take that one step ahead and let's look at everything that touches the customer. So this is like a dream project for any industrial designer to do. So what you get to design is you get to work on the trains, which is like I cancelled one of my road trip because I was sitting with the Alstom team to design the coach and the interiors. Of course, you have limited things that you can do, but yes, it's exciting. You design the tickets, the graphics, the brand of the tickets, right? And you create the whole brand. So now when we created this, this actually set the entire expectation that we are going to have all this. This has already been launched, which is now called Water Metro. Soon the buses have now started configuring themselves and rebranding. Taxis and last mile connectivity has already come on the single fare, and you can use the same card to go on an auto as well, and the last mile connectivity. Then we created the app, the whole app that helps you to navigate. We designed the machines. So in India, a lot of these projects get through government bidding process. And government bidding process is extremely limited to define the actual design intent, because you can't keep it in black and white. And then it is left to the imagination and the capability of the senior-most person there to understand what he gets from the vendors, right? And it was very limiting. So the kind of designs that I had got, one day they came across my table saying, we are getting these kind of designs. I said, no, this is not going to go ahead. Give us time, we'll give you those designs. And we redesigned the whole system, understanding the internal equipment, how it can be packaged well, and we designed. So this is an add value machine, and it's a smaller machine, it's that size. We even reduced the cost of the production, which they were doing, getting from the earlier make. Because as an industrial designer, you get involved into these things. We also designed furniture for them. We designed art at all the stations. Of course, we gave them a guideline. The artists came on board and created. And Kochi is a city which is like a tourist capital. If anybody have been to Kerala in India, that's the main city. There's a more city in Kerala. So then came Mumbai. So by that time, I had stepped out of the company in 2019, and I started on my own. I said, okay, I've built a big ship that's sailing. Let me start my own ship, and I'm here for the last 4 years building my small team, and we got the Mumbai Metro. Here we worked with few designers from the Sistra stream. Maybe you may have known them. They were from the Sistra stream, and we collaborated together to create a very different sign system which tells stories through pictures. So generally when you talk about a wayfinding sign, you say, okay, there's an arrow, then there's an icon, then there's a text, and that's the standard format globe everybody is using. And we said that we are looking at Mumbai, which is like the largest metropolis in India, and people across all the India come here. Very big language issue. So how do we make it more pictorial? So the story goes like this. So we have designed the whole guideline document. The sign is also very different. This was a sign that we prototyped in fiberglass, though it was not approved because of some fire reasons. We didn't get that much time to prototype and stuff, but this was a sample that we had made. So the story is very simple. The signs go like this. You are entering entry A, you go down an escalator, you will hit a gate, then you go down to the escalator, and you will go to a tube. And the same thing reverse works for a elevated line. And this is how, and the whole theme of this entire design system is calling follow the line, because Mumbai is going to completely change, because you are going to follow a red line or a yellow line or a blue line. So if that is going to be happening, then let us use that matrix and that theme. And that's how this entire thing. So if you look at this, this is working for the only underground line in Mumbai, which is line 3. This is for the elevated line. You are here, you go up, you take an elevator, and this entire sign system has been designed like Lego blocks. You just have to assemble the Lego blocks together and you assemble the whole sign. And we got an award for this as well. So, and currently we are reviewing this entire sign system that's being implemented. There are huge challenges implementing this entire system, because the clients don't understand the necessity of getting designers on board. They give it to the makers and the makers don't understand the system. All those challenges are there, right? I have been an avid user of urban transport everywhere, so I have started publishing a lot of stuff. So one of my articles got published in the Springer Journal, which talks about if you use buses, what are the advantages on your health? And of course, there were not matrices about, I did not do any empirical calculations, but it was interesting that I just wrote the article saying the value of 135 minutes every 127 days. So 135 minutes was the time that I used to spend in the bus to commute in the morning and the evening, and I tracked it for 127 days. And what all I did in those times? I read books, I attended calls, I was sketching, I was doing a lot of stuff. I was connected to my city, and those advantages you cannot measure. And that's what got interested, and then they published this article in the paper. So when I had stepped out of the company, I'm towards the end of my talk now. When I stepped out of the company, I literally sent this sketch to our local bus operator, saying, I don't have anything to do. I am trying to set up my studio, but I've been seeing that your bus system is not going right. You don't have proper information, passenger information. You need to do something, and there's a lot of things that we can improve. Give me a corner table and chair. I'll set up your design studio. They said, oh, I don't have money to pay. I said, I don't need money. I'll just come here, sit, tell me what you need to solve. And they said, great. So they told me, go to this particular bus stand and do something. So their idea was do some painting, add some graphics, do some art. And then we started intervening. So can you imagine these were the bus boards? You can't read, but imagine the inconsistency with which it was happening. And this will come to you as a surprise, because for you this is given as a part of the Western systems, but it is not given in India. And you really have to struggle to convince them, because they are seeing this is a very challenging task for them. So this was the front of the board. We don't know where the bus is going. So they had challenges. So he says, don't worry, your guys are painting things with hand. We are not telling them to do some advanced printing or change the material. You just ensure that you discipline that implementation. That guy who paints only has one hand. He only paints with his right hand. He is only guy. I think he lost his hand even in one of the accidents. He is an employee, and he had a good painting, and then he started painting. And he paints these boards. That's it. You just have to give them very minimal intervention, and they get it done. And that's how it has been really happening well. And then for that particular bus stand, we studied how many passengers really read, whether they know all the information. We present some sketches. So this is all happening out of my own interest, that we'll make an improvement. So no major drawings done and no major surveys done, but we looked at how the buses are plying. Now we have a very deep understanding of how bus networks work. And my entire agenda with the bus corporations in India now is to change the image of buses from saying that, okay, a bus is from point A to point B. Don't look at that. Look at bus as a network. And as you had said yesterday, interchanges are important. There are interchanges in bus networks, and they are extremely strong. So we have kind of found out what are the formulas with which you can identify an interchange, how people make certain areas an interchange, which the bus corporation does not intend to, but that's how it has been identified. And we put up some maps. These were tested. So this happened pre-pandemic to 2019. We tested few colors, and it received very interesting feedback. And we also tested that this does not give you the entire schedule. So we put up QR codes. You scan the QR code, you will get the entire list of the whole route of the bus from A to B, and you can get the schedule as well. So we started doing this intervention. And slowly that entire activity started picking up. We started working closely with the operator. One of the few senior people were very interested, saying, okay, let's do something about it. And we have trained them to draw maps. Because for the bus operators, the guys who manage the fleet, the routes are at the back of their mind. I don't have to spend time. So I just sit with them saying, okay, let's look at this bus, let's segregate these routes, and you draw it for me. And they draw it in a very crude manner, and then we convert those maps into better looking maps, which are, so this is the new format which I have applied for design registration as well. So this is probably extending the bus system, so each bus stop can have this map. It tells you where all the buses go, where all the interchanges are. So if you want to go to this particular stop, there are these all options that you get. It's a little extension from, if you have seen the spider maps of the London buses, a little takeoff from that, but a different system that we have evolved. And this is the photograph that you see of my profile. So this is a recent map, again, put up at my own cost at a bus stop. And I was really worried when I put this map up, because a lot of these bus stops get damaged because people paste handbills, you can come to my shop, flat for rent, come for jobs. Luckily, for last 6 months, nobody had pasted anything on this. Right? So, which means people are realizing that this information is important. Without, there's a small note at the bottom saying, please don't damage it, but that's it. But people are realizing that it's happening. So now we are trying to expand this across other things. So this kind of work has got noticed by the Central Institute. There's one institute in India which does capacity development for all the bus transports in India. So they are, so all the bus transports come under government and the state governments. And the state governments have combined this institute which trains their drivers, which train the conductors, which train the operators, which train the marketing team. So I've started doing trainings for them of how you need to improve the bus system. I'm in a process of setting up a guideline document of, because I think there are some 70 cities which are going to start fresh new bus systems. So if we are able to instill that guideline saying, okay, when you start a new bus system, what you should do? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this has to be done. Then I think new bus systems will change. The old bus systems are difficult to change because you can't move an institution, but you can make an impact in an institution which is getting formed. So that's how it is basically working. So I have considerable amount of work done across India. So far I've not done work globally, which I would be happy to do, collaborate with all of you guys to look at how it can be done. So my always approach is to integrate all the mobility, because the passenger doesn't always just look at one mode, he looks at everything else. And we are intervening from physical to digital. So finally coming to that particular end where the pleasure of traveling and how to deliver the better customer experience, I always advise that all these people who are building mobile metro networks or transport networks, they should shift focus. They look at it as an infrastructure project. They should look at it as a service project. It is tomorrow going to deliver a certain value through a service, and that should come in. So if you do that, your operations teams will come on the first day and sit next to the design team. Yeah, which we have seen the operations team come at last, always. Then we are also looking at experience design, which is not an activity like an architect does. Architects will come, design the building and go. But experience design is a continuous activity. You have to keep doing that work continuously. Then operations need more customer focus than the construction phase. As I said, operations need to come in early, and they should build design departments inside. Now, I know there are people sitting here who manage an active design department in a transport network. I would be happy to learn from you, collaborate with you to see how we can build some systems in India for that. And it's high time, we need that. And particularly, that's my advice always, set up a dedicated design team. It doesn't come as a surprise to a lot of you, but in India, it is a big surprise. This is, what does it do? We don't know. We have just designed a station, that's it. We don't need a design team, but I have been trying to convince it. And another part that we are constantly working on is, if you really want to integrate, these are the 4 pillars with which you need to work. One is you need to have a physical integration. I should be able to come from a bus stand, walk under a shade without crossing a road signal or a light, and then get into a metro station. Can you build that? Second, I should integrate fare. Can I use the same card, same techniques to pay for a metro, to a bus, to an auto, to any last mile connectivity? Third, information. It has to be integrated. I've learned a lot from Hong Kong and Singapore, which integrates a lot of last mile and interconnectivity. And of course, we'll try to implement it here. And the fourth one, which is the toughest to do, is institution. They are tough to integrate. That's the biggest challenge that we are facing, and hope so will happen. So this is one of my hypotheses, that as design, what we actually need to do is, you've all seen this Maslow's hierarchy of pyramids, which looks at basic things. We had food, shelter, and clothing, right? It has probably changed to this now, right? Internet, can anybody of you sit for even 10 minutes without internet? No. Mobility? No. Healthcare? No. Right? These have come at the base of yours. Probably this pyramid needs to change. And when you look at this, design intervention can work at the level of vision, which we are trying to work at many locations. It should work at the level of policy. It should work at the level of creating ecosystems. When I say ecosystem, if you are advising that, okay, all the transport networks need to sit together and plan that we have one person to serve. He might be using this different networks, but we have to look at that. Then you have to create an ecosystem. And then you create products. A product in which I can tap on a card, a product with which I can pay, a signage, a furniture, or a station. That's all at the product level. And in India, it doesn't work that way because it's so diverse. You may want to start a vision. We want to reduce pollution, right? That's at the top level. We want to say we want to reduce road accidents. These are visionary statements that people start with. They say we want to create walkable cities, or we want to say reduce congestion. And this is probably the vision that they want to set. But by the time you realize it, because a lot of things happen, deliberations happen, meetings happen, policies are made and stuff like that, by the time it reaches the bottom, people are not going to sit alight. As I said, they will start building their own systems, right? You saw this image previously, right? There was a gap in mobility. They said, no, I will build my own auto rickshaw and then start running, right? Electric came to India not by government. Electric came to India by people who started importing kits from China, assembling two-wheeler parts together, and suddenly one fine day, government woke up saying, what is this on the road? I don't have a policy for it. What if this guy hits somebody, right? He is charging from my grid. What is the policy? And then suddenly they woke up, oh, we need to put an electric policy in place. This probably happened 10 years back. And now they have an electric policy, and then there's a huge push that is happening. So what happens is, when you actually, as designers, I always say that we should focus at all these levels, and we should know where we are working. You're working at level 1 if you're able to influence a vision. You're working at level 2 if your create a policy for things, right? Then you are working at L3 if you're influencing ecosystems, if you're creating the setup of how everything will come together, right? You are working at L4 level where you're building platforms. Now, this is an additional layer. So, for example, if you must have seen this entire open source network, right? Open source platform. There are a lot of softwares that are built. So, that's actually at the L4. They have built open source tools which people can use to create their own stuff. So, design can work at that level. And at the end, you're working at file those tools and create products. That's what, if you want to reach to each and every person, you can't reach. So, you have to create tools so that they can build things on their own. They will co-create. And that's possibly what, if you want to serve a large population in a short time, you can't say that I'll reach the last person. You will have to say that I'll do in such a way that the people are in a position to use those tools and create things for themselves. A lot of design is now happening like this in the country. And it's a cycle. It keeps going round in cycle. So that's the end of my talk. Just 4 slides. In addition to all the mobility work that I've been doing, we also do some art, sculpture along with wayfinding. This is art that we did in Goa. Then we've done wayfinding for a large stadium recently inaugurated for the World Cup of Hockey. Then for the Indian Space Research Organization, we created merchandise because we wanted to promote it extremely well, because it was not known, and now it is all in the news after we successfully landed on moon. And this was a T-shirt that we created saying, yeah, what we do is rocket science, and signed by Indian Space Research Organization. As a part of this, we also designed a board game. It took a good 6 months to design it, and it has a strategy of teaching to kids, and probably it's not a kids game, but a family can play together, of how do you do interplanetary travel. And so it's played on two boards. This is the Earth and this is the Mars. The Earth board is very much like you have played snakes and ladders, very much similar on your luck. You play with the dice. And on Mars, you are playing with a strategy because you have to occupy and make a colony. And that's how the whole system goes. I've had fun doing this. I've set up a railways design center now, trying to intervene into rolling stock design, any amount of experience design that can happen into stations and systems, even catering system for that matter, some visuals of what we are doing as a part of our work. And that's the journey so far. More to come as we go. This was a sketch that I did a long time back, about 5-6 years back. This is a train which has 2 locomotives at either end of it. And you have to decide which one to take. This goes inside towards your inner self, and the other goes towards the sun with which you can illuminate the whole world. So where do you want to go? It's a little bit of a philosophical statement. So maybe that I did a long time when I was on a rail trip. And that's how things have been. And thanks for listening to me. The upper one is my website and the LinkedIn. It would be great to talk to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yogesh. We have time for one question. Someone has? Yes?
Thank you very much for your excellent presentation. I'm Guido Bruggeman and working currently in Bangalore.
Okay.
A little bit cynical because, or ironic, home of many map makers and travel planners. The best IT persons in the world come from Bangalore, and they travel every morning 3 hours by public transport and 3 hours in the evening. It's a little bit funny. One of the reasons to work there is the big failure of the metro systems in India. In average, the ridership is 50% lower than the forecast, and actually most of the metro systems you agree, likely, with
Absolutely.
Are a failure.
Absolutely.
And the failure is because there is no integration, there is no accessibility, there's nothing. Bus companies refuse to talk to the metro company, and the metro companies refuse to talk to the bus companies. You rarely find a map in India. We all know that 75% of the world population in urban areas doesn't have access to maps. And the larger part is coming from India. So you come to a city, wherever you come in India, do you have a bus map? It doesn't exist, so don't be surprised. What can we do? That's the question. That's the challenge for me, to set up the feeder bus network, the timetables, information for Bangalore. But what do you see as the essential part? Because I think the essential part is coming probably from information. And information and integration go hand in hand. But what's your vision about what is the key aspect, what is lacking in India, in particular also to this metro system and integration?
I think it's great. You kind of summarized the problem precisely, that is absolutely lack of integration between various transports. Long time back, I was working with the Delhi, and there was this officer who was from the government who works now at United Nations. He gave me an extremely good analogy. He said, imagine there's a chain which is suspended from top, and you want to make things happen, right? Don't make things happen at the lower links. You move the lower link, nothing happens to the chain. You should move the upper link. So if you move and are able to influence at the top level, that we need to integrate. We need to integrate, shift the focus from using urban transport as a tool to say that we want to get economy we want to create jobs, we want to fuse money into the projects, yeah? Because it's easy loans, right? If you want to build a metro, it's easy loans from a government, global banks. But that's not the reason why you should build infrastructure. The infrastructure should be built to look at human capital and that human time that we waste in transport and the stress that people go through. And if somebody is able to value that, do the valuation and present to the top of the chain, saying that you may have taken 1,000 crores as Indian rupees loan for building a metro. If you take the similar loan to look at the whole system, a bus system can be done in 1/10 the value of it. You will probably increase the human efficiency in your cities by 15 times. Now, some empirical calculation needs to be done to show that this is what we do, right? And I think we should all put together the efforts to make that thing heard. That's the only thing that I feel can be done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thanks a lot.